Here we go, let's start the show. Steelers by the legs. Time to get that day. James, Cody, Nick, and Jill on the mic. It's about to get real. Keep it live, that's right. From Pennsylvania to across the globe, it's time for the Steelers All-Star Show.
Welcome to the Steelers by the Lake podcast. My name is James Strong, joined once again by my co-hosts Cody and Nick. Unfortunately, Jill wasn't feeling well this morning, unable to join us. She's going to be all right long term, though. Gentlemen, how are you feeling this fine, rainy Sunday morning?
Sunday loser morning. No, I'm feeling good. I'm not as sniffly as last week, so that's good. We listened to the podcast back, and you could hear me sniffle. So I apologize for being under the weather last week. I am good to go now. Doing well. Nick, how are you, bud?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I didn't even realize it was raining until I got out because my air conditioner was blowing so loud that I thought my window was just fogging. But yeah, it's a rainy morning. It's a good thing to get up and start talking about what we saw last night.
Yeah. James, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm ready to take this day on. We're going to rein it in here as drinking a rain energy drink this morning to make sure I have plenty of juice to talk to you folks about all the wonderful things that happened in last night's game. Because even at a loss, you got to be able to find the positives, right? And I felt like there were some really nice takeaways for some very important players for Pittsburgh. We're going to get to all that. But I think before we get too serious, maybe we should start talking about our wonderful sponsors at the Edinburgh Hotel Bar.
Let's do it.
Supporters of Steelers by the Lake include the Edinburgh Hotel Bar at 100 Meadville Street in downtown Edinburgh, providing a variety of lunch and dinner items every day, along with full-service catering and private party accommodations. Details are available at 814-734-5103 or online at edinburghhotelbar.com.
Yep, we do love the Edinburgh Hotel Bar. Man, I'm craving their Caesar salad right now. I can't even lie. I'm a salad guy.
I'm always in the mood for their onion rings.
I don't know when that happened. I don't know when I became a salad man. But here I am in my early 30s saying, where's my salad?
I don't know. You never spent any time in California, really. I would have guessed it.
That is fair. That is fair. Other than salads, we have football to talk about, guys. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Week 2. There's a lot of things that I'm like frustrated on from this game, but not frustrated to the point where like I'm mad about it. It's just things I really hope we rein in by week 3 so that I can feel positive about, the team moving forward. But where would you guys like to start? I'm assuming quarterbacks per usual.
We do have some notes previous to the game.
Oh, you're right. I apologize.
Transactions here. So let's touch base with that real quick. Competition for Connor Heyward just got a little bit lesser as fullback / tight end DJ Thomas Jones was waived this week. Waived injured was defensive back Cameron McCutcheon. He was the one with the interception that was called back at the end of that first preseason game. He injured a hamstring later on in that game. Unfortunately, not going to be able to go. He did end up clearing waivers and reverted back to IR. So if Pittsburgh does want to bring him back later on in the season, possibly, that could be a thing. He at least will get a shot to come back and try out for the team again next year. And with that play that he made, I'd love to see more of him next year. So that's a good thing. To replace those gentlemen on the roster, they re-signed tight end Kevin Frohold. He was on the team already previously for a very short stint and then removed with some previous roster moves. And then defensive back Mikey Victor was signed as well. Beyond that, there is the elephant in the room everybody's talking about right now. We've got a couple camp hold-ins going on. One of them, Chris Boswell, nobody even really talking about. One everyone's talking about, Cam Heyward, and most folks seem to be very upset at him for asking to be paid for more than the 22nd best salary as a defensive tackle. Gentlemen, I want to hear your input on this because I think we've got some differing viewpoints on this one.
Nick, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go. I mean, we kind of chit-chatted a little bit about it already, but most of what my thoughts are is, you came in, you just got a new deal done last year. Now, I understand that you outperformed the expectations that were had for you after you had a down year, and that's where that original contract came in from. But you did sign a contract, and you signed a contract to play for a certain amount of money. And I don't disagree that he deserves more after what he did last year. And I know that a lot of people are likening it to the TJ situation, saying, oh, well, TJ came back and won more. TJ was due for an extension, and that's what that was. To my understanding, this contract negotiation, or hold-in rather, is just for more money on the current deal. If we get an extension done, I would have much less of a problem with it, and I don't know that I even necessarily have as big of a problem with it as I initially did. I like Cam a lot. He's always been a Steeler kind of guy. He's always done well for us. So I also agree that he is underpaid at the moment, especially for the performance last year. So I don't hate him wanting more money. I also just am not a big fan of you just signed a contract last year. Now you had a good year, and now you're trying to say, hey, I'm not going to play until I get more, which is not exactly what he said. But when he was asked if he would miss games in order to get this deal done, he didn't rule it out or speak as down on that as I had hoped he would have, as a guy who's for most of his career been a really team guy. So I really hope that we can get something figured out here. Is my ultimate thing is I'd much rather just have him figured out, have the money figured out, not have to worry about it. I know we have the funds to be able to pay him. I would like to still see us potentially bring in another offensive weapon. So hopefully there's enough money out there to do both this year. But I also don't think that's as necessary after what we've seen in these past 2 preseason games, and we can get into that later. But those are my primary thoughts on the matter.
I have mixed views. And my reasoning for that is because, yes, Cam Heyward played very well last year. Yes, he was one of the high points of the defense last year. But if players are going to do this, and I'm speaking both from a business aspect and a understanding the players deserve to get paid for what they're doing, while also maintaining the understanding of, hey, you guys are making millions of dollars to go play a game. I'm taking all that into consideration with this. One, if this is how we're going to do contracts from here on out, and I know that this has been the way it's been in the league. Like when players have a really good year, teams want to hop on that and maintain them for a longer period of time. Cam's 36. Okay. Cam's not getting any younger. So my thoughts on that are, okay, we're not trying to retain you for a long period of time. We're not trying to hop on this deal and get a deal done to maintain, status of you on the team or anything like that. And with that being said, if this is the way things are going to go, where, hey, this person has a good year, they want to redo their contract, even though they just re-signed a contract last year, then I think that the opposite should be able to be considered. Hey, we signed you for a $15 million contract last year. You didn't perform up to it. We're going to renegotiate and you're going to get less money. That's my brain thought on that. That's my mentality, is if you can go out and overperform your contract and want more money, then if you underperform your contract, we deserve, or the organization deserves, to give you less money.
And you realize that happens, right? Like they did that to Cole Holcomb this last year. You got injured, so you're taking a pay cut.
But I don't know. Is that like guaranteed to happen every time?
No, but they absolutely did.
Okay.
And that's not his fault that he got injured, but he had to take a pay cut if he wanted to stay on the team.
What would have been the alternative? They cut him?
They cut him. That's the option.
And that,
if you want a job, you're taking a massive pay cut. Sorry, I'm a terrorist. I'm your boss, but I'm a terrorist. You're either taking a huge pay cut or you're getting fired.
That's fair. To a degree, yeah. To a degree, yes. Like,
boy, that'd be bad for you when you went on vacation, got stranded while you were there. Your boss should have come to you and said, sorry, you got to take a pay cut. You were supposed to be here on Monday and you weren't.
I did take a pay cut. I didn't get paid.
Well, no, I'm saying
Another
they lower your future pay for something that happened that was out of your control. You got sick while you were on vacation. You couldn't make
I guess
on time.
the injury. Okay,
Your
let me
pay's getting
clarify.
docked from here on out for it, Cody.
I'm taking the injury aspect out of it. Injuries are different. Injuries like that, that's part, like that's a whole workman's comp thing. Like
That's
whatever.
where this came from, though. He was making less money because he got injured.
Cam?
Yes.
Well, let me clarify. Let's clarify something. I'm not opposed to paying him. Like, but it has to make sense. And I think there needs to be just the terminology in there. In most contracts, there needs to be of like, hey, if you like, it needs to be performance incentive. I don't know why it's not.
Yeah,
I don't understand.
I think it should
why
be.
it's not.
I agree with that. I think it should be if he's going to be getting more money, I think it should be in incentives primarily, because the whole argument he's making is, hey, I'm performing at a specific level for you guys. I deserve to be paid for that specific level of play. And so if he already signed a contract for a certain amount, I would have much less of a problem with them being like, okay, yes, you had this great year for us last year. As Cody mentioned, you're 36. You're going to be, I don't know when he turns 37.
He
but
turned next May.
Okay, so he not for this season, but in any case, there's the definite possibility of regression. There's an increased possibility of injury and all of those types of things. So it's like, we want to pay you more, or at least we being, I assume, all of the three of us here, because I do agree that he's underpaid at the moment.
Yep.
I think what would benefit both sides best is if they made it in primarily incentive based, give him like a additional signing bonus or something to make him a little happier too. But that way the team still is able to not have to be as on the hook for that money, because it's based off of, like, the whole premise of him getting this additional money is I overperformed. I overperformed where everyone expected me to be. I had a career year last year. So why not then tie the extra money that he's getting to that same principle, if that's the whole argument, is my thought.
I definitely understand where both of you guys are coming from on this. Just to give like the full backstory on this, Cam's previous deal, he was making an average of $16.9 million per year. I think it was 16.5. I'm sorry. His current deal is $14.9 million. The Steelers came to him and he kind of aired this out a little bit, and they told him you need to take a pay cut. He didn't have a very good year last year, and this was him coming off of an injury where he missed a lot of time. They said, chances are you're never going to be as good as what you used to be. You should be grateful that we're still putting you on the roster. Take this pay cut or we're not giving you a deal. So he took it, but he told them in that deal when he signed it, he said, now, when I get an all-pro season this year, expect me to come back to the table and ask for a contract that is requisite of my play on the field, because the only reason it wasn't as good last year is because I was injured. And then he went and did it. So he's getting paid as the 22nd best defensive tackle in all of professional football, but made the all-pro team first team last year, which there's only 2 defensive tackles that do that, which means he's in the top 2 according to the NFL as far as defensive tackles. I'm not saying I think they should pay him $30 million in a year, but I also feel like the reason Pittsburgh doesn't do the incentive-based deals is because it screws the player over if they get injured, and then that creates really, really bad rapport player to injury-wise, or player to owner-wise. So anytime they trade for a player and there's incentives in a contract, they always work them out immediately and go to a regular, here is your signing bonus that you get at the beginning of the year, and then here's what your weekly check will be. It's more structured and more player-friendly that way, and it gives them the security that they're typically looking for. And that's what Cam indicated as to why he signed the deal that he did sign, was for the security. He wasn't looking for like the world's most massive payday at 35 years old. He understood that he wasn't going to get that. But it seems more than fair to me for him to come back to the table when he told them he would. And he did indicate that when he told them that, they kind of laughed in that room. I don't know how many of you would take it too well if you told your boss, hey, I'm going to go perform better than all of my peers in the entire professional organization of what I do for a living, but I'm going to come back to you and ask for a raise when I do it.
Where did he talk about this? I just want to pull it up.
He did in an interview.
He was on, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is out there. If you look it up, you'll find it. But he said they kind of laughed in the room, not like a whole full belly laugh, but there were some snickers in the room when he said that, and people did not think that he would ever return to that form, which is honestly reasonable based off of his age and the position that he plays. Not too many defensive linemen and the defensive tackle category anyway play this well this late in their career. It's a very rare thing, but he's a very rare player. And I hate to see the end of his career end up with a bunch of people hating him because he's trying to ask for money that there was already kind of an agreement in place that, hey, if I outperform this, I expect to be paid like I outperformed this. This is the second best defensive tackle in Pittsburgh Steelers history, only behind Mean Joe Green. And he's trying to chase down Mean Joe's records. In fact, he's got more sacks than Mean Joe had in his career.
Yeah, and I don't hate Cam for wanting it for any and I think any Steelers fan that does that should probably, quite frankly, leave the fandom if that's the kind of mentality you're gonna have. Like, Cam is a great guy. He's our Walter Payton Man of the Year winner, not just nominee but winner. You know, he's a great part of the community out there. He does great work, and honestly, I'm glad we've kept him as long as we have, and I hope we continue to keep him until the day he retires. The thing that still just doesn't sit right with me is, you know, you mentioned like you go to your boss and say, hey, I expect a raise when I outperform everyone in my field. I get the mentality there, but if I were to do that, they'd be like, okay, we're moving on from you, kind of thing. It's not conducive to the company to have a contract signed and then to have the employee come back and say, okay, I overperformed, now give me a new contract. I might get my bonus at the end of the year, but I'm not going to get a pay raise because I outperformed. I may still get a pay raise if the company evaluates that they're going to raise pay for people, but I'm not going to be promoted or get a new contract or a new job title immediately from overperforming in a singular year. So I don't think it's a one-to-one comparison, but that's the part that doesn't really sit right with me. I understand where he's coming from and that he did preface with it, but if I were to go into signing because I'm pretty sure everyone, at least if you're working in a corporate setting, signs a contract when they sign on to a company, understanding job descriptions and all that kind of thing. But that's just where the disconnect is for me, I think, in that analogy, is just that if it's in a business setting, they're just going to say, okay, well, we don't need to work with you then. I know it's different for football, but that's just my thought process.
I think it depends on the conversations that you have and when you have them. So, like, for me, I see, like, Cam had this conversation while signing the contract, right? When I was hired with the company I work for presently, one of the things that I asked them was, hey, do you have a 90-day review and raise process? They were unsure because they had just been bought out by a major corporation. So they couldn't guarantee me that. But we came to an understanding that if I showed them certain things, that they would try to do what they could for me, right? So I came in early every day. I stayed late every day. I helped all the route drivers unload and load their trucks every single day. I never called off. I never missed a day of work. I did more than they ever expected and more than they were used to. And because of it, got a merit raise after 90 days when one was not in place. It was not a structured thing. It was not something that they were allowed to do but they went to bat for me because I went so far above and beyond on what their expectations were. And I feel like that's what it was with Cam. Their expectations were, hey, you're probably going to get 3 or 4 sacks. You're going to look decent, but you're not going to be all that great. He went out there and got a first-team All-Pro. That far exceeded the expectations of what they thought he was going to be. They probably figured for me, I'd call off once or twice a month. I'd do the bare minimum, just like everybody they were used to in the position I was hired in, and got the extreme opposite. So they took care of me, requisite of the performance that I put out there. So it can happen, but it all depends on conversations you have at the beginning. If you don't have that conversation with your bosses and say, hey, here's what you're going to get from me, are you going to be able to take care of me, and kind of set that expectation. If you don't plant it in their mind early on, it's just not going to happen, because they're going to treat you like anybody else at that point.
Yeah. And I can see how, like, there would have been, like, at least the aforementioning there for Cam, as he did go in, or claims he went in and said, when I have an all-pro year, I'm going to come back at this. The difference I see in that is you had that conversation, and your company gave you assurance, at least verbally, that they were agreeing to that. In Cam's case, that language, I'm assuming, was not in his contract, because it was something that he mentioned verbally, and that they kind of laughed at him when he said it. And I don't know if that was you're not going to achieve that because you're 35 and coming off of injury, or you're signing a contract, that's not really how this works kind of chuckle. So
no, I don't even think it was either that. I think more than likely it was like, this is our guy, like, he thinks he's going to go out and have a good year. Like, all right, let's see it. Like, I think it was more of a camaraderie thing than anything. And sure, he probably didn't take it that way because he's the one that got laughed at, quote unquote.
And took the pay cut.
Yeah. And so, like he said, he used that as motivation. The problem I'm having is, it seems like everyone, especially, and I understand how it works. I get it. Like, James, you're talking about the same thing. Like, I want to get paid for what I showed you I can do. Yeah. Cam wants to get paid for what he can show you he can do. The problem is he took a pay cut because of what he did do. Now we want to pay him because of what he did do as well. So now this year, okay, we'll give you a pay raise. But what happens if you don't perform like that because of the age, because of the deterioration that you see in older age NFL players? The number of players that make it past 36 is not large in the vast scheme of the NFL. Now it is mostly offensive linemen, quarterbacks, and kickers. Those are the top ones.
That's it.
And so him being on the defensive line and us seeing this is rare.
Calais Campbell's about it, right? And he's not exactly out there getting in the Pro Bowl.
No. And so, but that's my point, is like, there has to be a happy medium that I can't imagine Pittsburgh wouldn't want to get to. I'm just curious as to what happened to make him go out, because I did watch that interview just now. I saw it before. I had never seen the end of it when he talks about it. Always cut off. Yeah. And so I'm curious what happened to make him call them out like that,
And I think that the realistic thing here is not, I don't think Cam's going to him and saying, pay me $30 million a year. I think he just wants to get a little bit more requisite of the play that he put on the field. I think if they say, hey, let's throw this deal that you have out right now, write a 2-year deal for $20 million a year instead of the $15 million a year, I think he'd be pretty happy with that. And I think even if he puts up another all-pro season, he's probably not going to try to come back after this year. Or you can even write it in the contract and say, hey, we agree with you. You should be getting paid more than what you're getting paid right now. Nobody expects you to do this well at this age just because it hasn't been done before. Not because we doubted you, just because it hasn't been done before. But you can't come back to us again after this season if you have another all-pro season and ask for more money again. You can put that in the contract to make yourself feel better, And I think that would be a reasonable thing. I don't think they should go pay him $30 million. But I think if you start getting to that 20 to 22, I think you'd make him happy, and you're still not paying him like even a top 10 defensive tackle at that point. But I think it would be enough for him to feel more valued for his services that he's putting on the field.
I think that's a good happy medium, especially when you include that language in there. Not that they're trying to undermine him, but that, like Cody mentioned earlier, they have to do the business aspect of things too. And there's no guarantee that he's going to continue to put up those all pro seasons, but he did, and he should, as he feels, and as I'm sure all of us feel, be fairly compensated for that, no matter what form that takes. If they tack in some bonuses or whatnot, but I think including that language in there gives them the security as well as gives him the reassurance of, hey, they're treating me a little more right, and based off of the performance I gave last year. I like that proposal there, James. Pittsburgh, take notes from James Strong. He's got it figured out.
I'm looking one thing up to speak on it real quick. Hang on. You guys can keep talking.
I don't have a lot more on this topic, honestly. I'm just glad that he's part of the room, and I'm hoping that they get this all worked out, so that you can see a little bit more of that development. I feel like Cam's been trying his best to pass on his tools and the knowledge that he's gained over the years, with all the tricks of the trade to the next guys, but there haven't been the right guys to pass them on to. So he's trying to teach these guys, and it's just not working because they're just not capable. And finally, you get Derek Harmon and Y.A. Black in the room, who both look fully capable of executing things that Cam can teach these guys that sometimes are just different from what you get from a defensive line coach. So I think that's the other value that you've got here. I mean, when you went to sideline shots during the game last night, and they're showing Derek Harmon after his sack and seeing these defensive linemen, who's sitting next to him with headphones on, but Cam Heyward. Like, he's sitting there listening to the play calls, and he's talking to these guys when they come off the field. He's still coaching them up, even though he's going through this hold-in. So he's not like separating himself from the team. He's still being a good team player in doing so. Yeah, I just want to see him retire as a Steeler. I'd love for it to be more than the 2 years left on his contract. But if that's all we get, hey, that's great, because I just think it's neat that we get to say that we watched who will likely go down as the second best defensive tackle in Pittsburgh Steelers history. And we got to see his whole career. I think that's pretty awesome.
It is.
Yeah.
The last thing I'm going to say about this is, because I wanted to know, he talked about being 22nd on the list. He's actually 23rd based on my numbers for interior defensive linemen. He out of the 22 guys ahead of him, he outperformed last year just on sacks, 19 of them.
Yeah.
So
that's what he's talking about.
Yep. And I get it. And the numbers, his total value is at 20, or his average year is 14.5. The top guy's 31.7. The middle ground would be 21.3. Listen, if we want to give him 20, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah. So I think we all agree that if we give him that rate, right around $20 million range, I think it would be enough to make Cam happy. I don't know who wouldn't be happy about a raise that's basically 20% of what he's making now. That's a huge raise. If I got a 20% raise out of my company, I'd be ecstatic. So I think that would be enough to get this done, personally.
I was just doing a little bit of digging into the details on Boswell's contract. He had signed for $20 million back in 2022, and it looks like the current highest contract was Butker's deal that he had recently signed, a 4-year, $25.6 million extension. So not too drastically different there either in terms of what the highest paid kicking contract is, but it also looks like he was the lowest paid kicker in the AFC North last year. So I think we can afford to show him a little love too. Hopefully we can get both of these guys signed before too long to stop the hold-ins and get those two guys back doing what they do best.
Boz is technically ended last night. He played, so that's technically ending his hold-in. So we'll see what happens with that moving forward. But it is going to be interesting to see how this other one plays out with Cam. So hopefully he doesn't miss any games, but we will see what happens.
Yeah, and I think as far as like the missed game thing, he has to say that from a negotiation standpoint. If he says, "Oh, I'm not going to miss any games. We don't have to worry about that," there's no reason for them to come to the table. So I don't think he's going to. I don't think he's planning on missing a single game. But he has no choice negotiation-wise other than to say that he hasn't ruled out that possibility or he's just not getting paid, period.
Yeah. True.
So speaking of Boswell, huh? I mean, boy, we need him, huh?
Yeah.
Ben Sauls ain't it, huh?
Well, to be fair, as we mentioned before the show, it could have been, we weren't going over the film with a fine-tooth comb, but it could have been the fact that our starting long snapper was out for a lot of the game last night. Hopefully nothing too serious. But we had Logan Lee on long snapping duty, which he did fairly solid for most of the game. Had a couple low snaps, as we mentioned previously. But all in all, looked pretty good in that backup long snapper role.
Yeah, good on Logan Lee for being ready, right? Apparently he hasn't done any long snapping since high school in a game. But it's something that he did last preseason on the side, just in case. He's done it this preseason on the side, just in case. And before that first preseason game, I think they waived Tucker Addington, who was the other long snapper on the team. And you just don't expect your long snapper to get injured. But Christian Kuz injured his chest making a tackle that looked like it was a touchdown-saving tackle, to be honest with you. I think that return man was going to take it to the house if it wasn't for Kuntz. What they said after the game is that it appears that he avoided any major injury. Over and over, players and Mike Tomlin indicated that this appears to be a minor injury, which is fantastic. Hopefully that means we'll have him for week 1. I would not be surprised if Pittsburgh brings Tucker Addington back for this last preseason game.
Yeah. Yep. Excited that he's not hurt long-term or anything. I mean, he's going to be the guy, right? I mean, that's it. It is just good to know that we have a backup.
Yeah.
That's all that
Which,
really was. That was good in-game practice.
Logan Lee earning a roster spot for that backup versatility. Just saying, that's my boy from a couple years ago in the draft. So big Logan Lee fan here. But
they always tell you the more you can do, right? So
yeah,
that's very important to be able to offer something more than your original position. That's why you see guys trying to get into kick return and punt return lines and, doing kicking and punt coverages, young guys. You never know when that might be something that gets you on the team. There's been plenty of guys in the past, like Roosevelt Nix. You remember when Roosevelt Nix got his job as the starting fullback? That was more off of special teams play than it was off of fullback play.
Yep.
And he ended up getting into the Pro Bowl as a fullback. So you never know when that special teams value is going to be something that gets you on the team and maybe even turns into a solid career.
Yep. No, I agree with you there. Let's talk about the game now. Let's break down some numbers. Obviously, Boswell, did the opening kick. I don't know that he did much more other than that, correct? It was just kind of that first kickoff.
I don't remember if he did that first extra point, but I'll look it up real quick because I've got the stats in front of me.
There's no stats for kicking for him. So 2 for 2 extra points was from Ben.
Yeah.
Ben Sauls.
Yeah, so just the extra or just that kickoff then I think is what he did.
And so that's fine. But looking at the quarterback play yesterday, kind of concerning, quite frankly. Mason had the 1 touchdown towards the end of his second drive? Or it was the end of his second drive, obviously. But all 3 of our quarterbacks threw interceptions yesterday, so that was not exactly a good time for us. Skylar Thompson came in and did 10 of 15 for 113 yards, took 3 sacks for 18-yard loss. Mason was only 3 of 5 for 46 with the 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And then Logan Woodside came in late in the game, 4 for 9 for 45 yards and an interception. So not a great time for the passing game, that's for sure. What are our thoughts on these guys?
And just to give Skylar Thompson a little credit, his interception went off the hands of Lance McCutcheon.
Yeah.
That one was actually a good pass where the receivers just got to make that catch. It pops up in the air, unlucky pounce for the Steelers and gets an easy interception on what was a good throw by Skylar. So I'm not as down on Skyler's performance as Cody likes to do sometimes. If you take that one away, then he's 10 of 14 with no interceptions. And it
9
looks
of 14.
Huh?
Oh no, that's 10.
Well,
That's 10.
Yeah, you don't
If-
take away completion for that.
Well, and if he had been, if I can't remember who the receiver was, excuse me. But if he hadn't been held on that play too, which was a no call, they had him around the pads for most of that interaction there. That ball probably isn't going to get tipped up because he has the chance to come back on that route and catch that ball. As it was, he's kind of back a little further, it tips up, and then the ball is intercepted. So that was a missed call, in my opinion. He had him by the pads. It was not a subtle. Tomlin was getting all up in arms about it with the refs as well. But again, I think that's actually another completion and reception for him. And then we also continue that drive if that missed call doesn't take place. You can't blame the refs because I'm not going to get into it, but if he wasn't held, more likely a reception than not.
Looking at a couple of these other guys, even Skylar Thompson also had a pass that could have been caught later in the game. That was it was a dumb play call on 4th and 7, where they threw it to JJ Galbraith in the flat, and he wouldn't have got the first down even close, but it went right off his hands and off his helmet. Like it was kind of rough, or maybe it was the defender's helmet. I can't remember, but it was that was also a miss on that. I thought Skylar Thompson did play a good game. Let me clarify. It's unfortunate on the stat line to see interception for all three guys.
Yeah.
Running back games, however, I was very impressed with Lou Nichols. Oh my gosh. That guy ran hard. He had the longest run of the game with 14, had a nice tackle broken on that play, cut back, and then just a really good run for Lou. And I was excited to
37-yard run.
Yeah.
37, excuse me. 14 was his average. I'm sorry. I apologize. I thought that sounded like it was short.
14 was the long run for Caleb Johnson.
Correct. You're right. But it was nice to see the running game open up a little bit. I still don't think it's at the stage we want to see it for regular season. I want to see some of those starters get out there and see what they can do, see what holes they can open up. But happy to see Caleb have a better game than last week, 11 carries for 50 yards. Evan Hall was the guy that ran rough last week, right? Am I wrong?
Correct. Yeah, he had like 5 carries for 6 yards or 6 carries for 7 yards or not a very good stat line. So a better game for Evan Hall as well.
And then Trey Sermon, obviously, with the 1 touchdown on 3 carries for 4 yards. But that is what it is. But Lou Nichols, I thought, was the big highlight for that because I thought he had a really good game just from those 3 carries. And he also did I think I saw him do a decent pass block as well. I'm not sure if it was him or not later in the game, but I couldn't get a number on it.
He had a really nice catch too, where he got blasted the second he caught the ball,
And he held on
a full extension catch. Yes, so a very important game for Lou Nichols. I thought he was good week 1. He stacked on that. You talk about that in preseason game, is stacking performances, and we're going to talk about some guys who didn't have as good of games this week after having good week 1s later on. But Lou Nichols is stacking good games. Now I would say if Pittsburgh is going to keep a 4th running back, Lou's probably got an inside track on that at this point, and he should, which is ironic because he's really only been on the team for a few weeks now. He was a late addition to this team. But Lou looking very good in my opinion. I was really excited about Caleb Johnson's performance in this game. He got a much longer burn. I thought he showed better contact balance than the first game. Some people were trying to knock him for his vision in the first game. I thought that was very good in this game. Also, he did a better job when it came to releasing after pass blocking and showing good hands in this game, which was an adaptation and something that he learned from making a mistake in the first game. And he showed better job on kick return duty as well. So I thought that overall Caleb Johnson showed improvement in every area of his game, which is incredible. That's exactly what you're looking for. These are the things that we've talked about rookies in the past, is that they don't have to be perfect day one, but you do want to see them learn from mistakes, not repeat them and improve on them as they go along. And I thought this was a big step forward for Caleb Johnson. So I'm just as happy about Caleb Johnson's performance as I am Lou Nichols. And I think that this running back room is starting to look a little bit deeper than it looked after that first game, just because of how well some of these guys are playing. So couldn't be happier.
I like to also seeing Caleb's improvement throughout the game. And I know some of that has to do with some of those more top end of the roster guys being subbed out and getting some more of the back end of the roster guys in. But even so, it seemed his vision continued to improve throughout the game. I know there was one play early on where I was a little frustrated with him because he went to go be a little too patient, and then instead of trying to make a move on the guy, he tried to power through him and he wasn't able to do it. But I think he took that experience, held it with him, and continued to go through the game with that knowledge. And I see him just building upon each experience, not just from game to game, but within a game, which is something that I'm very excited to see him develop. And I like what you said there, James, about his vision, especially developing, because a lot of people after the first game were like, oh, he's Najee 2.0. He doesn't have the vision. And so it's nice to see them have to eat their words a little bit, and hopefully they will continue to do so moving forward.
The one thing I'm going to go back on, just because I forgot to mention it with the quarterback play, was although Logan Woodside threw that really, really, really bad interception, I was happy to see him go and make the tackle. And Hurleman almost got the second fumble recovery of the day with that one. Unfortunately, he couldn't get on that one. But I wanted to go back. I just completely forgot about that because that was nice to see the effort.
Yeah, good hustle, right? He kept the game alive by hustling after making a pretty bad mistake.
Yep. You guys want to go offensive line, tight ends, or receivers?
Let's go receiving group, and then we can talk O-line a little bit.
Okay. Bad game for Hurleman. 3 targets, 0 catches. I don't mean to start with the negative there, but that was really sad to see after he had such a good week 1. Connor Heyward had 1 catch for 1 yard. Kenneth Gainwell 1 for 2 yards. Trey Sermon 1 for 4 yards. Lou Nichols 1 for 6. That was the one where he got blown out that we talked about. Caleb Johnson 1 for 9. Brandon Johnson 3 for 16 in the touchdown. JJ Galbraith 2 for 17. Scotty Miller making an appearance 2 for 38, and then Rock Taylor 3 for 39. Wish he would have gotten that other one little out of reach. And then Roman Wilson with the big day, 2 catches for 72 yards. Was nice to see him really have a good showing because of the things we've learned about where, Aaron Rodgers saying he just needs to get out of his own way, out of his own head. He needs to realize he's a good receiver. It was nice to see him have that game, and especially that deep 42-yard bomb was nice to see.
Yeah,
Scotty,
go ahead, Nick.
Scotty Miller is making me eat my words. I'm not mad about it. Rock Taylor is a guy that I've been excited to see this whole time, so I'm glad to see him do well as well. And last night, as I was having trouble sleeping, I was scrolling through social media as I normally do.
Yep.
And I came across, I believe it was Steelers Things as a group that I follow, but they posted a meme, and it was, "Is the cure for male loneliness Roman Wilson?" And I was like, that's it. That's it right there. He's been balling out, showing up, and that's kind of what I alluded to earlier on in the game. Earlier on in our talks here, I don't know that we necessarily now need, or I don't know that we ever really did need to go out and get another offensive weapon after the Jonnu Smith trade. But now I'm feeling much less pressure to do so now that we've seen some of these younger guys begin to come into their own and step up. And again, I know it's preseason, but we know that they can do it. And there are still some number ones that are going out there during these preseason matchups to get back in the swing of things, to get some play in before the regular season. So it's good to see that kind of play from these kind of guys. So I'm hopeful about Roman Wilson, and I'm liking what we're seeing from our receiver group. It's a great problem to have when you have a lot of depth. So,
yep.
Yeah, they definitely had some starters out there because I saw, what's his name, Jamel Dean. That's one of the starting corners. I saw him get beat at one point in time and complain about it when he got called for holding. Because he was used to getting away with that, which I thought was hilarious. So I felt like some up and down stuff going on here. I think the strongest performance was Roman Wilson, like Nick just mentioned, just looking fantastic. And he's playing out there with the starters and playing against starters. So we do get to hold a little bit of stock with that as to whether or not that would translate into regular season games. I'm very relieved to see that because I'm concerned. There's starting to be more murmurs that this Calvin Austin thing is a little bit more of an injury than people realize. And there's a possibility of this trickling further into the season, maybe even. And I feel like Roman Wilson can handle that Calvin Austin role right now. So I like that a lot. Max Hurlman, man, you got to catch that ball in the end zone.
Yep.
There's dropping balls, and then there's dropping balls that are easy touchdowns. And that hurts a lot more, especially in a game that you end up losing by 3 points when you drop touchdown passes. That's really bad for your future, man. Brock Taylor was an up and down one for me. His first 2 balls thrown his way, I thought both were catchable. The first one he was kind of getting interfered with, but never made an effort towards the ball. The second one he kind of T-Rexed and just didn't stick his arms out all the way. And that dude's pretty long. And he just didn't extend all the way, and I thought it would have been a pretty easy catch and definitely would have been a touchdown because he had his guy beat. But after that, he played well the rest of the game. So I do feel like he at least didn't let that get in his head and did put together a nice game afterwards. Beyond that, on the receiving side of things, Brandon Johnson, I think he's making a nice push. This was a very good game for Brandon Johnson. This is a guy who actually played at the same previous place as our current wide receiver coach. So that's why he's here, is that they've got experience together. So this was a very important game for him to try to fight for that back of the roster wide receiver job. Will they keep 5 wide receivers? Will they keep 6? We don't know, but it seems like there's a really nice competition going on from these back of the roster dudes with Rock Taylor, with Brandon Johnson, with Max Hurlman, with Scotty Miller. The guy that I come away wondering about 2 weeks in a row is Robert Woods. We're not talking about him, and I don't know if he's just not playing a ton in these games because they kind of assume him to be a guarantee, or if he's just kind of slipping through the cracks and not making any impact at all. So I'm hoping to see a little bit more from him on the 3rd preseason game if they intend on keeping him on the roster.
He was in there later in the game because the announcers mentioned Robert Woods coming into the game, and he didn't seem to contribute in any meaningful way. I know we were a little critical of him in the last game with missing some blocks, which is one of the main reasons we feel they brought him in. So it'll be essential, in my opinion, to see him do something in the final preseason game, because as of this point, what I've seen at least has been indicative of him not making the team. So unless Pittsburgh has seen something that we haven't, you would think that he'd get a lot more playing time in this 3rd matchup next week. Well, this coming week, this week.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need another Van Jefferson, right? He didn't do anything last year. He was out there to block, and he contributed 0 on offense. So I want to see more out of a guy that's going to be out there a significant amount of time. And right now, I'm not convinced that he would be out there a significant amount of time. The only thing that would lean towards that is when you look at the other wide receivers in the room with Calvin Austin, Scotty Miller, and Roman Wilson. These are not big dudes. So if you're trying to run the ball, you might want your Ben Skoranek or your Bobby Trees out there as the other wide receiver if you're going to run 2 wideouts. So I feel like it's insanely important for him to block well and show well in this last game.
Yep. Let's chat briefly. I mean, not briefly. Offensive line specifically. I thought Broderick had a good game.
Mm-hmm.
They talked about the announcers were ticking me off. They were talking about how Broderick was learning a new position. I was like, no. He's going back to his old position. I was like, he's not learning anything. This is a good thing, and he's more comfortable at left tackle. And so I thought Broderick played well. I was really the 3rd team offensive line really struggled, in my opinion. And there was one guy, Warren, he wound up getting hurt on that interception and coming off that. I thought he just struggled all day long.
He did.
It was very unfortunate to kind of watch that and see that. There was another name. I got to look up the guys because I'll remember the name once I see it. But what do you guys think of this offensive line and who probably just lost their roster spot?
I agree with you fully on Gareth Warren. I had high hopes for him coming into this preseason, just because size, frame, arm length, his college tape looked good. He looks slow on his feet. He's getting false starts. He's getting holding penalties. And then at the end of the game appears to have suffered a concussion, which means he's likely going to miss this next game because it's only 4 days away at this point. So if he did sustain a concussion, he will not be playing in this final preseason game. And that'll spell the end of Gareth Warren with the Pittsburgh Steelers unless they try to put him on the practice squad. But I don't know that I see enough for that to be a thing. I thought better game from Max Sharping snapping. I didn't come away from this game talking about all the bad snaps from the backup center. So an improvement from him. I still want to see Ryan McCollum come back from his injury so that we can see how Ryan looks this year. He's missed the whole preseason along with Calvin Anderson as well. So it's tough because I feel like two of the best backup offensive linemen that we've got haven't been able to play in any of the preseason matchups due to injury so far. And it's tough to rely on those guys as your top backups going into the season, never having seen them. Spencer Anderson looks like the real deal at left guard, though. He's gotten first team both of these games with Isaac Seumalo getting rest days. And I think at least we've got an arrow pointing up on Spencer. It might be a difficult decision for them to either go with him going forward in the future as the starting left guard after this upcoming season or going back to the draft for somebody more high pedigree.
Yep.
That's my thoughts on this too. Is the one person I would highlight would be Spencer Anderson. Obviously, we haven't seen Ryan McCollum or Calvin Anderson, but the rest of the backups, I wouldn't say anyone's necessarily lost themselves a job other than probably Warren, which isn't entirely his fault because he could have still proved himself had he not gotten the concussion. I think that he showed promise to start and then had a rough game this go around. And if he had another chance to go out there, he could have potentially redeemed that. Now that he's injured, I don't know of anyone else that's really impressed me, and I'm worried about a lot of our depth. I don't know. I didn't catch too much of that new veteran that we signed. Peebles, I think is his name. Did you guys see?
Andres Pete. Yeah, he played a decent amount in this game, and he didn't stick out to me, which is a good thing because that usually means you're doing your job when you don't stick out. So he might be somebody that is to be considered for this 53-man roster because he's got a significant amount of playing experience at both left tackle and left guard. So especially with Calvin Anderson being questionable as to what we know, what the injury is, how bad is it, when is he going to be ready? Will he be ready for the regular season? Maybe Andres Pete is going to be that other offensive tackle with Dylan Cook.
And I like the positional versatility there too, to be able to have him move along the line. And I know Tomlin is a big fan of that as well. So definitely nervous about the backup offensive line. But a guy like that, in my opinion, would be the one to watch. I don't necessarily know that anyone other than Warren worked himself out of a job. But again, he didn't really work himself out. He hurt himself out of a job, which is unfortunate. And we wish him a speedy recovery.
Yeah. Braden Fajoko, I thought, had an up and down game. I saw some good and some bad from him. In all honesty, there was one play he got beat real bad. And luckily he got saved by, I think it was one of the tight ends, I think, that saved him, came in and saved him.
Not Braden Fajoko. That's
no?
You're
You
talking defense, right?
No, offense. I just want to go back to that briefly. Right?
Fajoko is the defensive end, right?
I think so.
Did they play him on offense?
No.
Then hang on, I got to get this number down.
No, nope, I'm not sure who you're
70
referencing on this one.
Good.
but-
I'm not crazy. It's Cody. Glad we squared that away.
Where'd it go? Stephen Jones. My apologies.
There you go.
There's 279s.
That would get me. So I'm not gonna hold that over you too hard.
Yeah, that was the last one I was going to talk about there. Just bad blocking.
That's fair.
I mean,
That's fair.
he was the one that had the I think it was either a false start or whatever, and then he also gave up the sack to one of the big sacks later in the third quarter. Was a really bad block play. Let's bounce over to the defensive side of the ball. I'm actually excited to talk about some of these guys. Let's talk defensive line first. I thought that I personally thought Keanu had a good game. He had a pass breakup at one point. It was nice to see Derek Harmon get his first sack. Very, very aggressive bull rush first sack. That was nice to see. Other than that, I don't have anything else defensive line wise. If you guys do, that's fine. I want to talk. I'm excited to talk secondary, but we'll get there. I'm not going to rush it.
Yeah, what a dominant bull rush that was, right? He put that guy on skates. Took him right back to the quarterback and got an easy sack. So love to see that from Derek Harmon. We didn't see a bunch of splash in the week 1 preseason game, so I'm glad we got an opportunity to see more in this game. I agree with you on Benton. I thought Benton had a nice game also. It depends on where we're categorizing DeMarvin Leal. It was nice to see him finally get to the quarterback. I think he's a little more outside linebacker than he is defensive line these days. And I thought Y.A. Black, again, impressed with just movement and chase. There was one play where a throw was thrown to a wide receiver on the outside. He cut in and then started to go downfield, and Y.A. was running him down. And this was a quick wide receiver, and it was just 100% effort. And here comes this monster defensive lineman just looking like a freaking linebacker out there as far as his speed. And I was like, man, I see why they're excited about this guy, because his hustle and his movement is so much better than any measurable would have ever indicated. Like, when you looked at his stuff from the combine, his jumps weren't impressive. His 40-yard dash time was slow. Like, there was nothing measurable-wise that said this guy is going to be a stud. But here he is, moving like somebody who runs a 4.8 40. Just it's incredible to see. And just his ability to get off of blocks. He's so good at using his length. Some guys have great length and they don't do anything with it. He's using length and hand fighting. He's grabbing offensive linemen by the wrist and by the elbows and pushing their arms out of the way so they can't use them. Like, this is like 8-9 year veteran kind of stuff that this rookie 5th round pick is doing. And you have to assume some of this is coming from excellent coaching. But he just is already executing things at a much higher level than where he should be based off of where he was drafted and what his skill level was expected to be. So I'm real happy about what we've seen out of him so far. At least we got a little bit more of a burn on defense from Logan Lee, but I felt like he didn't get a chance to really splash all that much. And a lot of these defensive linemen just really didn't make a huge impact, and still kind of waiting for that second to third tier outside linebacker or defensive lineman to make a big play that we can talk about. And it isn't really coming, which is going to make things kind of chalk as far as roster predictions.
I've been enjoying seeing Jack Sawyer's motor. Even though he's not necessarily getting in on all the plays, he's always around the play. So I think that with some time and some more coaching and some more experience, he'll be that guy. I just think it's going to be a little bit of a slower burn with him, but he always seems to have the motor to get to the ball when he needs to be. And it reminded me of the tackle he made on Trevor Lawrence. Again, it wasn't a tackle for loss. It wasn't a sack or anything along those lines, but he still managed to get completely around the lineman that was assigned to him and still make a play. And I know that was last game and not this game, but I saw similar motor and effort from him, despite the fact that he never got home on it this game. So I'm interested to see his development. I'm going to be keeping an eye on him for sure. And then I also wanted to give a nod to that'll come in a minute. We're talking defensive lineman. Don't get ahead of it. We'll get there, but definitely enjoyed watching Keanu Benton, as you guys said as well. And we'll get to linebackers here in a second.
Well, I mean, we can do that now. I'm okay with making that transition over to linebackers.
I was just going to give a nod to Mark Robinson. I think
Okay.
he quietly had a solid game despite not having any big splash plays. And James and I were going back and forth a little bit before we got on this morning and just talking about how it's great to have so much depth at that position. So I'm sure we'll hit the other guys more too, but quietly had a really solid game despite not putting up splash plays.
Yeah, this middle linebacker unit is talented, man. Once again, we saw the starting duo of Peyton Wilson and Cole Holcomb. I feel like they didn't let Peyton stay out there for very long, which is fine because he's really proven himself, in my opinion, already. Cole Holcomb had a fantastic game, registering 4 sacks in this game. I thought Malik Harrison looked fantastic against the run in this, really showing that that's the reason he was brought in. 3 solo tackles for him. And a couple of them were pretty awesome hits at or behind the line of scrimmage. So a real nice job from him. Mark Robinson shows the physicality when he's out there. Unfortunately, Carson Bruner's just kind of getting burned at the end of games right now, so he's not getting to prove as much. But I do want to give him a shout out from week 1. He had 6 tackles week 1, including 3 on special teams.
Dang. Also, 4 tackles for Cole Holcomb, not sacks.
Oh, yeah. Obviously, I meant tackles. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would have been pretty cool if he did, though.
That would have been pretty nuts. But yeah, so I mean, Carson Bruner had an amazing first game. I didn't think that he did anything negative in this one. He shows some really good movement skills out there. So hopefully they're able to sneak him onto the practice squad. I feel like his chances at the 53 are getting a little bit longer at this point, but it's a little more so because everybody in front of him is playing so doggone well. And it makes it difficult with how do you keep that many middle linebackers.
Yeah.
So I think these are great conversations for us to have is how do you keep so many middle linebackers? Cody, I'll let you talk on this and maybe we can hit on the outside linebackers after that.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'd say is, unfortunately, it was Peyton Wilson that gave up that touchdown in the end zone to Bruce Irving.
But his coverage
the coverage was there. I'm not in a preseason game. I'm not going to lose my top about that.
Yeah.
But that's just a thing to go back, watch footage, kind of just train yourself. Hey, the moment that head turns around, get my hand up. Like that was going to be such an easy pass breakup. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, but that's fine. That's the only thing that I'm going to say. I thought Malik Harrison played very well. Mark Robinson, like you guys said, had a good game. The depth at this interior linebacker position is scary because I don't want anyone to go down with an injury because I'll feel like okay, but I don't want that. I don't know. I'm just nervous. Every time we have a position with depth is when we get hit with 3 injuries. So I'm knocking on wood now, not that I believe in that, but whatever. Nervous about it for sure. Outside linebackers, kind of, again, in my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, kind of a quiet game from the outside linebacker crew, not having any of these starters in there. Unfortunately, Nick Herbig got injured in this game. I haven't seen an update on that. But
hamstring injury is what they were calling it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
and they're also calling it minor. It sounds as though he might have been able to come back in the game had it been a real game.
Well, that's good. But
Yeah.
I not a whole lot, in my opinion, to talk about from the outside linebacker crew in this game.
No, Isaiah Loudermilk had 1 tackle. Jack Sawyer had 1 tackle. It's not too exciting.
Loudermilk, yeah.
Well, and Loudermilk more of a D tackle these days. But I would say quietly, Eku Leota had a really nice game. I had some splash against the run stop, the 4th down run late in the game, and got some pressure on the quarterback as well. So for a guy that's been written off by probably 99% of people out there, he's making a late push and could be somebody very valuable for the practice squad. I was hoping to see a lot more out of the German guy. I just haven't seen it so far. I was big on him. I was hoping he could make the 53-man roster this year after having a nice preseason last year, and it just hasn't happened. So The pass rush not overly impressive for the outside linebackers quite yet. Their last chance is coming on Thursday to try to prove something. If that hamstring is even mildly acting up, Herbig ain't going to play in this game.
Nope.
So, again, we're going to be looking at Jack Sawyer and DeMarvin Leal starting, Leotu and our German player backing him up.
Joyce Wilshoff.
Yeah, Welshoff. I don't know why the name was escaping me, but it was for some reason. So you hope that one of these guys makes a little bit of splash. I'd love to see it from Sawyer. I agree with you, Nick. He's always around the ball. That's the kind of guy that when he's always around the ball ends up with a lot of fumble recoveries. So you love to see that kind of hustle. You know that it's coached that way. Defensive line coach, outside linebacker coach, defensive coordinator. These guys all are big on hustle to the ball and get there because you never know when somebody's going to miss a tackle or something's going to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if Sawyer, even if he only has limited play this upcoming regular season, ends up with 2 or 3 fumble recoveries because he's just Johnny on the spot of always trying to get there, even when the play seems like somebody else is going to finish it.
Yep.
And he did a lot of that in college. I want to say it was the game against it was against Texas because it was Quinn Ewers who he did it to. Ewers goes down, ball comes out, scoop and score from Jack Sawyer. So he's known to be around the ball. He's known to have that awareness. So I would not be surprised at all if something like that did come to fruition. And again, if he can continue to work on his technique and find better ways to get maybe inside or to use a different move, maybe TJ and Alex can coach him up a little bit. We might see some more production from him as well, but definitely always around the ball for that potential scooping up of a loose ball.
Mm-hmm. On to the secondary.
Yes, thank the Lord. I'm ready. DBs and corners specifically. I got 3 guys to shout out here. I thought Daryl Porter had a phenomenal game. I thought Deshaun Jameson had a great game. And I also thought Brandon Echols had a good game. Just really,
No.
You don't think Brandon Echols did?
No. Joe and I were calling for him to lose his job the whole game.
I saw enough from him later in the game, and sure, he's going up against lesser guys. What plays are you specifically talking about with him?
So there was one after the punt where Tez Johnson returned, and this was the drive where Teddy Bridgewater scored the touchdown to Emeka Egbuka. I believe it was the 4th down play where he was completely lost to start the play, which is why the reception ends up happening. I believe it was a 4th and 7. And when he goes to recover from missing his assignment, Thornhill's coming in to make up for it, makes the tackle. Echols comes in and almost annihilates Thornhill because he just had no awareness. He missed his assignment in the first place, and then the second place almost took out the other starting safety, which, he's a corner, but he almost took out one of our starting safeties. So that was both frightening and upsetting to me. Is one, that he missed his assignment, and 2, that he almost took out another player on his own team because he wasn't paying attention to what he was doing. And then James and I discussed this a little bit beforehand. He was in the right place for the Emeka Egbuka touchdown.
Yep.
But I don't know if he just tripped or something, but he was just flailing out there. And it was not like, if you're going to be a corner for this team, I'd much rather see a guy like Beanie Bishop, who was always around the ball, who was batting things down, who almost got several interceptions in this game, than a guy who was a guy who was floundering and allows that. Now, granted, Emeka Egbuka had great concentration and made an amazing catch. But I also mentioned to James that there was enough contact on that play that I think if the catch doesn't get made, you could make the case for a flag being thrown on that as well. So most of what I saw from Echols in this game just did not in any way, shape, or form make me confident in him as a corner on this team. I don't know if you saw in our text thread, Cody, but Jill and I were both saying, what's going on with Echols? Get him out of here. Put a Beanie Bishop in.
I thought it was a rough start for Eccles, but I thought he did rebound later on in the game and started putting some good plays together. I think he even had a pass breakup later on in the game, where I felt like he did redeem himself a little bit, but definitely a rough start for him with some miscues early in the game. I thought he had a very strong week 1 and a little bit weaker here in week 2.
Yeah, looking back at that play in the corner of the end zone, I don't think you can play that much better. I mean, if it wasn't for the ball being technically short, I think it doesn't even get caught. Eccles is in the exact position you'd want to see him in on this play. He forces himself inside here, gets his hand up. He needs to do a better job of looking back for the ball a little bit. But if that ball is higher, he's defending it.
He's going like this, like that's not.
But that's
corner in the
putting
NFL
your hands up is what you're supposed to do as a corner. Like just get your hand in the way of the ball or play the gap is what they call it. Try to get your hand in between the other offensive players' 2 hands. I mean, that's not flailing in my mind. He's trying to look back for the ball, trying to get his hand up, but it just fell short.
Yeah, I felt like he just didn't get his head turned around fast enough, but he was in position to make the play. So I like the fact that he was hip to hip with him and didn't lose him, because Emeka Egbuka was known to be a very explosive, very quick wide receiver coming out. So it's not like that just kind of went away. He's a rookie. He's very fast. So overall, I thought that Eccles was in good position there. Just obviously, if you're headed towards the sideline in the end zone, you're running out of space. You got to get your head turned around because he can't catch it once he's out of bounds. Yeah. So that ball's coming.
I did think Beanie had a good game
pass
as well.
deflections from what I can see here.
Which one? Who?
Eccles in the game.
Okay. Nice. Safety room. Let's talk about the guy, the man, the myth, the legend.
Before we go too far, Deshaun Jameson, I thought was real nice again in this game. I know you touched briefly on him. He was one of your highlighted players from this week. I think the corner room overall was not all that great in this game. But Deshaun Jameson plays like a safety, and he's 5'9", 186. He even had a forced fumble in this game. I just love how he flies to the ball. He's a hard hitter, and he seems like he's pretty good in coverage. And he returned some kicks week 1. So this is somebody I would love to see on the practice squad, maybe even that 6th or 7th guy. I'd love to see him as a gunner next week in this final preseason game. Can he maybe even steal James Pierre's job? Because Pierre don't look too good out there trying to cover people.
So just for comparison, Beanie Bishop had 7 tackles from what I can see here. Oh, wait, maybe that's full preseason.
I think that's going to be full.
It's giving me full preseason. So, yeah, it's Brandon Eccles. So, over the preseason, Eccles has had 3 tackles. Bishop has had 7. And passes defended is equal.
Oh, that's not bad. And the quality that they're going up against it varies differently. I don't think preseason isn't the greatest time to compare stats with the different changing offensive players they're going against throughout the entire game. That's just a tough thing. In the regular season, that's one thing because you're always going up against the best. Outside of a week 17 when a team sits their starters because they already have the playoffs guaranteed, whatever. But no, I am happy with a lot of these guys. And like you said, Deshaun Jameson, even returning kicks and doing stuff. I think it would also be fun to see him be a gunner. I know we already went with receivers, and I'm not going to talk about this briefly, but I do love seeing Hurleman as a gunner. I mean, that's the reason he got the 1 fumble recovery. So
yeah,
I love seeing that. But the safety room, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Sebastian Castro, had himself a game. And it was nice to see.
Iowa boys showing out last night for the Steelers.
He had a big hit last week and this week, right?
Yeah, not as much of an impact last week, but boy, with 5 tackles this week, 4 of them being solo, an impressive night for Sebastian. And he didn't get into the game very early either. Nope. I know it was third quarter before he got into the game, and I don't think it was super early. So a big impact from him, showing to be a very solid tackler, which is exactly what the tape showed and what we knew about him already. But it's nice to see him put some good tape out there. Like to see some pass deflections, maybe break up a pass here or there. But he's doing an incredible job of getting guys to the ground, looking very reliable out there. This safety depth looks maybe a little bit better than what we thought. I didn't think that Quindell Johnson was too bad out there either. Got himself a tackle for loss. I think he had the fumble recovery on the hit that Jameson caused the fumble on. And Thornhill just continues to be somebody who just flies around out there when he's out there. And after 2 games, I'm still not saying, oh, Chuck Clark missed this or Chuck Clark missed that. You know, he's starting. He's playing out there with the starters, and I'm not noticing him screwing up, which for a safety is usually a good thing. If you want guys to be good enough to be starter level, sometimes it's more important that you don't see them than it is that you do, because that means they're not screwing up and getting beat. So we'll see how this plays out, but I think that we should be pretty happy about this depth here with both Thornhill and Chuck Clark registering tackles for loss in this game. So that's a real nice 1-2 punch on guys maybe fighting for the same job, but I think at this point it's probably safe to say Thornhill's proving himself capable of that starting free safety position.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. Moving to special teams, Ben Saul's 0 for 1 on the field goal, unfortunately, would have changed this game. 2 for 2 on extra points. Yay. Corliss Waitman, 3 punts for 174. Cameron Johnston, 3 punts for 127. However, 2 of his were inside the 20. Only 1 of Corliss Waitman's was inside the 20. It's very interesting, this punter battle, because neither of them are having bad games per se. There's a drastic difference here in average, but I don't think, where they're punting from always plays a factor and stuff like that. But very, very, very interesting to see this punter conundrum and battle go on. And I'm curious to see who they're going to keep, because quite frankly, I'd be okay with either one of them. I think I'm leaning towards Waitman, Johnston. I just said Waitman, but both of them are having a good preseason punting the ball. So, any thoughts on special teams for you guys?
I feel like Johnston had the more opportunities that were conducive to getting the ball within the 20. And I think he was also able to kind of pinpoint that accuracy a lot. Waitman, on the other hand, had the boomstick with the 64-yarder. So I'm loving this punter battle. I don't have a problem with either of them being on our roster. And I think if you can find a punter needy team out there who might have a punter that's struggling, you could get something in return for one of these guys. So I'm excited to see them hopefully both. I don't want them to get too many opportunities, but it is the preseason, so I don't mind if they get too many opportunities, because this is, in my opinion, one of the more exciting
battles
in the training camp, because like a lot of the other stuff is like, ooh, that guy looks good, that guy doesn't. Like, some of those things are a lot more set, whereas this one seems to be tightest race, so it's exciting. So I don't know. I almost kind of hope we do a lot of fourth quarter punts, because we're just so ahead that we don't need to keep going for it in the final preseason matchup here Thursday night. But we'll see what happens. I'm excited to see both of these guys go out. I was excited when we signed Johnston. I was impressed with Waitman when he had to come in and fill in for us. So looking forward to see both of these guys suit up again and see which one ends up on the final roster. And who knows, maybe one ends up on the practice squad, but I doubt it.
Yeah, doubt it.
I think this is the only position on the team where there's a legitimate roster battle for a starting position. I don't see it really anywhere else. Both are, as Mike Tomlin loves to say, both of them are starter caliber. Both of them are varsity, as he likes to say. So very, very important thing to have, because we've had many years where we had punters that weren't varsity. They were JV and they were shanking them, and you never knew when it was going to be a 30-yard punt or a 50-yard punt. And it put your defense in some really awful positions. And that's just not really much of a thing with either one of these guys. You'll get a bad punt once every 8 weeks, but that's it. The rest of them are all good. So I love this punter battle. It's a wonderful problem, and God, it would be nice if we could flip one of these guys for a 7th-round pick and stack even a little bit more capital. Just give me a little bit more capital for next year. I want every pick we can possibly get.
Yep. I'm ready for it. And then we talked about Logan Lee's versatility to be able to come in and play long snapper. That was nice to see. So bravo, Logan Lee. that's going to wrap up today's show. If you guys have any input you want to share, feel free to message us or comment on the video or on social media. We can't thank you guys enough for being here. Be sure to like and follow on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Subscribe. Ring the bell. It's free. Doesn't cost you a thing. Don't forget 5-star reviews and Apple Podcasts. Make James here very happy. And until next time, this is your host, James, Cody, and Nick, signing off.
Peace.